You've been told a story so many times that you stopped questioning it. You hear the word revelation, and your mind jumps to firestorms, final battles, angels blowing trumpets in the sky. But let's cut straight through the noise. That entire script you memorized was never meant to protect you. It was meant to blind you. And right now, I want you listening closely, because I'm about to take a hammer to the version of revelation you were raised on. Not softly. Not politely. I'm smashing it open so you can see what spills out. Revelation isn't a prediction of the world ending. It's a classified document exposing the architect of the trap. And if that sentence shocks you, good. You should feel your heartbeat climb. You should feel your instincts pull you closer. Because once you hear what Revelation is actually describing, the old narrative cannot survive another minute inside your mind. Imagine this for a second. A prophet locked away on a barren island receives visions that don't warn about future wars or collapsing nations, but about a cosmic ruler who forged an imitation reality and crowned himself as the supreme being. Revelation isn't about humanity's destruction, it's about the unmasking of the jailer behind creation itself. And the moment you see that angle, everything else snaps into clarity. You've been reading the book like a weather forecast. But the original readers? They recognized it as a rebellion manual. A reveal-all. A takedown. A divine whistleblower report. And if no one ever told you that, that's exactly why this moment matters. Stay with me, because this next part flips the entire table. The lamb, the beast, the dragon, the seals, the trumpets, all of them aren't about nations or geopolitics. They are metaphysical symbols of the forces behind existence. And the darkest twist? The so-called beast is not the villain. He's the mirror. The mirror held up to the false god who has reigned unchallenged for eons. This is where the text stops being a prophecy and becomes a weapon. Look closely at the opening vision. John doesn't see a comforting deity floating on a cloud. He sees a being with eyes of fire, a voice that shakes dimensions, and a sword erupting from the mouth. That's not a greeting card image. That's confrontation. That's revolt. That's the beginning of an audit on the cosmic throne. And John isn't panicking because of destruction. He's panicking because he's seeing the truth for the first time. You, watching right now, need to understand this. Revelation starts with a takedown of authority. It identifies the throne that rules the world, but then immediately reveals that throne isn't what it claims to be. The book tears open the sky and shows the machine behind it. The gears. The operator. The fraud. Think about how violently that shatters the narrative you were fed. You were told Revelation describes judgments from a loving God. But the text itself never paints these judgments as compassion. They're surgical strikes on a corrupt system. They're cracks forming in the architecture of a cosmic empire. They're leaks escaping from a prison wall. And let's get even sharper, the 7 churches? They're not congregations being encouraged to stay faithful. They're pressure points. They're code. They're decryptions of how the demiurge, this self-appointed ruler of the material cosmos, keeps souls obedient. Each message exposes a method of control disguised as devotion. Each letter is a blueprint of spiritual manipulation written in plain sight. Let me talk to you directly here. Have you ever felt like there's something off in the way the divine is presented? Like the image of God you were taught doesn't match the instincts inside you? Revelation is the book that lifts that veil. It doesn't whisper. It roars. It drags the shadow into the open. Now let's hit the moment where most people turn away, the unveiling of the beast. The beast with 7 heads isn't a political leader. It's not some future tyrant. In Gnostic and esoteric readings, those 7 heads depict the 7 emanations of the demiurge, 7 masks he wears to maintain dominion. Not symbolizing kingdoms, but layers of deception. Layers of authority. Layers of fear. The beast is the distorted face of the ruler who demands worship while hiding his flaws behind divine branding. The reason the beast he once was, now is not, and yet will come has nothing to do with history. It's describing a pattern. A self-replicating consciousness. A force that shifts shape whenever it's threatened but never actually disappears. A cycle of control that regenerates each time the illusion weakens. And here's where revelation shifts from shocking to explosive. The dragon, the great red monster, has always been labeled as the enemy. But in esoteric tradition, the dragon is the shadow the demiurge fears most, the possibility of his exposure. The dragon isn't attacking the heavens. He's attacking the lie. He's assaulting the illusion. The dragon is chaos formed from truth. When the dragon lashes out, it's not because he's evil, it's because he's the force capable of tearing down false order. And then you have the woman clothed with the sun, the figure mainstream doctrine tries so hard to sanitize. She's not a saint. She's not a church. She's Sophia. The exile. The forgotten architect of the spark that lives inside every soul. The demiurge tries to swallow her child because that child represents awakening, gnosis, awareness that the ruler in the sky is not the source. Let me ask you something directly. Why would a cosmic ruler try to devour enlightenment the moment it appears? Why would a so-called benevolent God send floods to drown wisdom? Revelation preserves that question because that question fractures the mask. And once the mask fractures, nothing looks the same again. Let's go deeper, because you came here for the darkest part. The Lamb, the image painted for centuries as gentle, holy, sacrificial, isn't helpless at all. The Lamb opens the seals. The Lamb breaks the system apart from within. The Lamb is the force that steps into the machine and smashes the locks. And that's why every time a seal is opened, something catastrophic happens, not to humanity, but to the architect of the world. These are not punishments for mortals. These are breaches in the infrastructure. The first horse, the collapse of manufactured conquest. The second horse, the dismantling of violent authority. The third horse, the breakdown of engineered scarcity. The fourth horse, the death of the system's control over mortality. When you see Revelation through this lens, the imagery stops being chaotic. It becomes precise. It becomes strategic. Each horseman dismantles one of the tools the demiurge uses to maintain the illusion of power. This isn't prophecy. This is rebellion. This is infiltration. This is the cracking open of the world from the inside. Look at the fifth seal. Souls under the altar. Crying out, not for mercy, but for justice against the powers that ruled them. And what are they told? Wait a little longer. Not because humanity isn't ready, but because the system is still unraveling. Because the false ruler hasn't fully lost his grasp yet. This is the moment the text quietly acknowledges there's another authority out there, higher, older, beyond the demiurge, waiting for the right moment to strike. Now watch what happens at the sixth seal. The sun darkens. The moon turns to blood. The stars fall. Kings hide. Mountains move. Why? Because the architecture is breaking. The simulation is glitching. The fabric of the constructed universe can't hold its shape anymore. And the rulers of the earth panic because the one thing they fear above all is exposure. Not destruction. Exposure. And right when the system is on its last breath, the Lamb breaks the seventh seal, and there's silence. Not peace. Not calm. Silence because the machine has shut down. Silence because the false god has no voice left. Silence because the throne is naked. You want to understand the beast? Then stop imagining a cartoon villain stomping across the earth holding a trident. Erase that picture right now. The beast isn't a political figure, and it isn't some future dictator waiting to rise from the ashes. The text never treats it like a human threat. It treats it like a structure. A system. A consciousness with 7 layers of dominance, each one designed to lock you inside a framework you didn't build. The beast isn't coming. It's already woven into the architecture of the cosmos, long before humanity ever learned to speak. People love to obsess about those 7 heads, like they're some prophetic checklist. But the 7 heads aren't describing world empires. They're describing 7 faces of an entity that refuses to die. 7 modes of operation. 7 engines of control. And every single one is designed to keep the cosmic hierarchy intact. When John sees the beast rising from the sea, he isn't witnessing a villain emerging from chaos, he's watching a system reveal its true form for the first time. Pay attention to that image, rising from the sea. The sea isn't water. It's the unconscious realm. The place where primordial forces hide. When something rises from it, it means it's exposing itself reluctantly. Almost like it got pulled out. Almost like the vision forced it to appear. And when John sees those heads, he doesn't describe awe, he describes recognition. As if this thing wasn't new, but something ancient that finally lost its disguise. Look closely at the description. One head appears wounded, almost fatally, but then heals. That right there is one of the most misunderstood symbols in the entire book. People think it refers to political assassination or some world leader surviving death. Wrong. That wound is symbolic of a system that gets damaged but never destroyed. A structure that collapses in one form only to regenerate itself in another. This beast doesn't die because it's not a creature. It's a cycle. Let me talk straight to you for a moment. If you've ever wondered why the beast is worshipped by all who dwell on the earth, the reason is simple. The vision is describing a force woven so deeply into the fabric of existence that most beings mistake it for the natural order. The admiration isn't devotion. It's complacency. And Revelation exposes that complacency for what it really is, submission to power that was never benevolent, only dominant. Now pay attention to the 10 horns. People gloss over them like they're minor details. But horns in apocalyptic language are manifestations of raw authority. 10 horns isn't a number, it's a symbol of complete jurisdiction. That means the beast doesn't rule through charm or moral appeal. It rules through influence that saturates the entire field. It doesn't persuade. It asserts. It demands. And every horn carries its own method of enforcement. And here's the part nobody dares to touch: the beast's power doesn't come from within. It's given. It receives authority from something greater, something older, something even more controlling. Its strength is delegated, not earned. That alone should make your skin crawl. Because if the beast is this massive, this overwhelming, and it's still just a subordinate, then Revelation is hinting at a hierarchy far darker than what you've been taught. When John sees people asking, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" he's not describing admiration. He's describing resignation. The beast appears unbeatable because it's designed to be unbeatable. Not because it's strong, but because its strength comes from outside the system it's dominating. It's the equivalent of a prison guard carrying the warden's authority. You don't fight the guard if the warden is the one scripting the outcome. Let's dissect the mouth that speaks great things and blasphemies. That's not arrogance. That's proclamation. The beast isn't bragging. It's stating the terms of reality as enforced by the authority behind it. And those of blasphemies? They're only considered blasphemies because they contradict the self-appointed ruler's narrative. The beast isn't the rebel. The beast is the enforcer. The one repeating the doctrine of the throne that empowered it. You need to notice something else: the beast is permitted to rule for a specific period. That means its power isn't eternal. It's authorized, timed, activated within limits. It doesn't choose how long it reigns. It's following a schedule it didn't write. And this limited time frame isn't about mercy, it's about strategy. This thing isn't unleashed forever because its purpose isn't destruction. Its purpose is containment. And then we hit one of the strangest lines in apocalyptic literature: the beast makes war against the holy ones and overcomes them. Think about that. Not fights them. Not challenges them. Overcomes them. That means its authority extends beyond physical force. It overrides spiritual autonomy. It bypasses resistance. It bulldozes anything that tries to break the pattern. Because the beast isn't an enemy of humanity. It's an enemy of awakening. The text makes that clear without even needing explanation. Now let's talk about the second beast. People rarely understand how important it is. They treat it like a sidekick or an assistant. But the second beast is just as dangerous. It rises from the earth, not the sea, meaning it emerges from stability, not chaos. This is the force that mimics the appearance of innocence, two horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. Notice the contrast. The outer form looks gentle, but its voice betrays its allegiance. That duality is Revelation's way of saying, don't trust anything by appearance. Authority hides behind symbols of purity. This second beast performs signs, calling down fire, animating images, not to deceive people with magic tricks, but to legitimize the system that empowered it. It's not performing miracles. It's enforcing belief. It's telling the world, this is the order. This is the structure. This is the power you must submit to. And when people bow, they're not bowing to the second beast. They're bowing to the authority that flows through it. And then the text drops the bomb. The second beast causes people to build an image of the first. Not worship the beast itself. Worship the representation. That means this structure doesn't need physical presence to dominate. It only needs symbols, images, replicas, echoes. As long as something stands in place of the beast, its authority continues uninterrupted. Let's go even further. The infamous marquee isn't stamped on the forehead or hand to track behavior. It's stamped to align identity. This isn't a censorship system. It's a signature of allegiance to the structure that rules the world. Revelation describes a world where the mark becomes the prerequisite for participating in the system. Not because the beast needs loyalty, but because the beast demands recognition. It wants the universe to acknowledge its power not out of fear, but out of routine. You want to understand the red dragon? The dragon doesn't enter the vision like a villain, it enters like a truth the system can't suppress anymore. And before you blink, the entire hierarchy starts reacting to it like it represents the one fear no throne wants to face: exposure. Let's hit this fast and hard. The dragon isn't a demon. It's not a monster crawling out of some fiery cavern. The dragon appears in the sky, right in the domain the ruling power claims as its own. That alone tells you everything. This isn't an invader. This is a rival force returning to reclaim territory. A direct challenge to the so-called ruler who pretends the heavens belong exclusively to him. The dragon shows up where it's not supposed to be because that's the point. It's not asking for permission. It's declaring presence. And Revelation describes it with brutal clarity: 7 heads, 10 horns, diadems on each head. That's not a biological creature. That's a symbolic manifestation of an energy massive enough to rupture the boundaries of the demiurgic order. The dragon's heads don't represent kingdoms or nations, they represent autonomous centers of power, each one capable of destabilizing the cosmic structure the beast enforces. Where the beast imitates authority, the dragon embodies raw primal force, undiluted, unfiltered, uncontrollable. What rattles people is the dragon's color, fiery red. That's not violence. That's illumination. Fire in apocalyptic literature means revelation, burning away illusions. So the dragon doesn't appear to destroy humanity. It appears to destroy the facade. And the moment it appears, Revelation's narrative shifts from structural analysis to open conflict between forces that predate creation itself. Now, let's talk about the woman, because she's crucial. This entire scene collapses without her. And spare me the sanitized interpretations. The woman isn't some holy mascot. She's cosmic authority incarnate. She shows up clothed with the sun, standing on the moon, crowned with 12 stars. That is sovereign imagery. That is celestial dominion. That is a figure whose authority doesn't come from the demiurge or any subordinate entity. Her power predates the system. She appears pregnant, not with vulnerability, but with potential. She's carrying a force the ruling order cannot control. A force that threatens to destabilize the artificial hierarchy built on the lie of absolute dominance. Her labor pains are not human suffering. They are the friction between truth and the system trying to suppress it. Now pay attention here. The dragon positions itself in front of her, ready to devour the child the moment it's born. That is not an act of hatred. That is an act of desperation. Think about it carefully. If the dragon wanted to defend the system, why attack the woman? The dragon isn't defending the system. The dragon is attacking the system's fear. The child represents awakening so powerful that even the dragon understands its emergence will shift the cosmic balance permanently. This is the paradox Revelation throws in your face. The dragon opposes the woman but also mirrors her purpose. Both are forces too large for the system to control. They collide because the system can't contain either one. The demiurgic order fears both of them, but for different reasons. The woman brings truth, the dragon brings disruption. And the moment these two energies collide, the heavens start shaking. Let's break down the chase scene, the one people love to misinterpret as a literal battle. The woman flees into the wilderness, a place prepared for her. Wilderness doesn't mean exile. It means outside the system's jurisdiction. It's the place where the demiurge cannot legislate. It's the edge of reality where primordial forces still hold their ground. When the woman retreats there, it's not because she's weak. It's because she refuses to operate under a false ruler's authority. Now let's hit the next part with zero hesitation, the dragon unleashing a flood. People imagine water. Forget that. Floods in apocalyptic language represent overwhelming doctrine, overwhelming dogma, overwhelming narrative force. The dragon isn't trying to drown the woman. The dragon is weaponizing energy to overwhelm the environment she occupies, to force a confrontation the system didn't predict. The woman's response? The earth opens and swallows the flood. That means the structure the demiurge designed fails to contain or support the dragon's assault. The earth itself betrays the cosmic order by absorbing the dragon's move, neutralizing it completely. And then, Revelation throws the knockout punch. War breaks out in heaven. Not on earth. Not in the underworld. In the domain the false ruler claims to control absolutely. The war isn't metaphorical. It's metaphysical. Forces of revelation clashing with forces of control. But watch who gets cast down. Not the dragon. The dragon loses the location but not the power. Being cast down doesn't mean defeat, it means displacement. The dragon is expelled from the fake throne room and hurled into the lower domain so the core conflict can unfold without illusion. You need to understand this, the dragon's fall is not punishment. It's purification. It's the stripping away of the false authority's ability to hide. When the dragon falls, the sky is cleared. The mask is gone. The throne stands exposed. People think the dragon is the villain because the dragon is violent. But Revelation's cosmic rulers aren't afraid of violence. They're afraid of independence. The dragon represents the one thing the false god can't control, a force that doesn't obey. When the dragon lands in the lower realm, it doesn't crawl away defeated. It stands. It regains posture. It assesses the battlefield. And then Revelation describes something chilling, the dragon pursues the woman's offspring. That's not vengeance. That's strategy. The offspring represents sparks of the same truth she carries, small fragments of the cosmic awareness the demiurge fears. The dragon goes after them because the dragon recognizes what they're capable of growing into. And here's the twist you're not ready for, the dragon's pursuit isn't malicious. It's instinctual. Awakening destabilizes everything. The dragon doesn't oppose awakening because it hates it. It opposes awakening because awakening rewrites the rules of the game the dragon has been playing for eons. The dragon represents the primal chaos that predates law, structure, and order. Chaos doesn't fear truth, but it reacts violently when truth threatens to erase the battlefield. This is why Revelation describes a fierce, relentless pursuit. Not because the dragon wants to wipe out enlightenment, but because the dragon wants to prevent incomplete awakening, because incomplete awakening destroys everything without replacing anything. In esoteric interpretation, the dragon isn't the enemy of the woman. It's the enemy of fragmentation. Look deeper into the imagery. The The woman is given wings of a great eagle. Wings mean ascension, movement above the plane controlled by the demiurge. She escapes not because she's weak, but because her frequency rises above the dragon's reach. And that forces the dragon to shift tactics. It stops chasing her and turns its anger toward her children, those who carry the command to disrupt the false order. The text then describes the dragon standing on the shore of the sea. This is one of the most misunderstood moments in Revelation. The dragon is not waiting. It is calling. It is summoning the structure that can enforce its agenda in the lower realm. And that's when the beast rises. Not as the dragon's superior. Not as the dragon's ruler. As the dragon's instrument. You've heard the four horsemen described like omens of global collapse, but that version barely scratches the surface. Revelation doesn't introduce these riders as messengers of doom. It introduces them as precision tools for forces unleashed to tear open the machinery of cosmic control piece by piece. There's nothing random here. No chaos. No improvisation. Every horseman is deployed like a strategic strike unit targeting a specific mechanism inside the architecture of the demiurgic order. And let's be clear from the first sentence, these riders don't serve the system. They dismantle it. They don't come to deliver warnings. They come to break locks. If you think they're here to punish humanity, you're reading the text upside down. Look at the way the vision unfolds. John doesn't see these riders emerging from the world. They're not born of events. They are triggered, activated, released. Each seal cracked open by the Lamb doesn't initiate destruction, it initiates exposure. Every seal you break lifts one more layer of the illusion. And when the first four seals open, what steps forward are the forces designed to destabilize the foundation of the cosmic order? Let's go head first into the first rider. The white horse. People mistake it for purity, triumph, or deceptive peace. But Revelation doesn't paint peace here. It paints domination, surgically applied domination. The rider carries a bow, yet no arrow is mentioned. That's intentional. It speaks not of violence, but of projection, authority asserted without force, control achieved without weapons. This is the strike against the illusion of sovereignty. The cosmic order relies on the facade that control is voluntary. The White Rider destroys that facade by revealing how much power has been operating through invisible influence. When this rider steps out, he's not conquering lands. He's conquering constructs. Every false belief embedded into the fabric of creation buckles under his presence. And the crown he receives isn't a symbol of legitimacy, it's a symbol of exposure. It means his conquest is recognized by the architecture he's tearing down. He's not defeating a nation. He's defeating the lie of authority itself. Now let's drag the second rider into the spotlight. The red horse. People treat it like war, conflict, rivers of blood. But that's too literal, too shallow. The rider isn't bringing war, he's revoking peace. Peace in the text doesn't mean harmony. It means compliance. It means order enforced under a cosmic hierarchy. So when this rider removes peace from the world, what is really removing is submission. The false stability that keeps everything restrained. Look at the weapon he carries, a great sword. Not a spear. Not a bow. A sword symbolizes cutting, severing, dividing. The Red Rider cuts through unity that was never genuine. He slices through the enforced cohesion the demiurge uses to maintain power. Without that cohesion, the entire structure destabilizes. People say this rider causes chaos. What he actually causes is independence. And independence looks like chaos to a system built on obedience. Now let's shift into the third rider, the one on the black horse. This is where Revelation gets brutally analytical. The black horse doesn't represent famine in the simplistic sense. The rider holds scales, scales that don't weigh food, but value. Scarcity isn't his weapon. Exposure is. The voice declaring the prices of wheat and barley isn't reporting inflation, it's revealing the arbitrary valuation system the false order relies on. The third rider shows that the limitations shaping existence are not natural. They're engineered. And everything the demiurge claims is sacred balance is nothing more than controlled distribution. The scale isn't justice. It's manipulation. And the rider doesn't disrupt by stealing resources. He disrupts by revealing the artificial nature of lack. That's why the oil and wine are untouched in the vision. They symbolize the commodities the system protects regardless of suffering. The message is clear: scarcity is a tool. And the rider exposes that tool by stripping the illusion of fairness from the equation entirely. Now we reach the fourth rider, the pale horse. Death. But not death as an ending. Death as a function. As the ultimate enforcement mechanism. Death in Revelation isn't a natural cycle. It's the last line of control the system possesses. The pale rider doesn't kill indiscriminately. The text doesn't show him erasing existence. It shows him reclaiming what belongs to the system. And Hades follows him, not as hell, but as containment. As the holding chamber for everything the demiurge doesn't allow to transcend. The pale rider doesn't come to destroy the world. He comes to break the system's monopoly on mortality. He reveals that death, as the system defines it, is part of the structure itself. A built-in failsafe. When the pale horse is unleashed, he tears that failsafe out of its socket. He unveils death not as an inevitability, but as a program boundary. Look at the authority given to the pale rider, power over a fourth of the earth. People take that literally. But the text isn't talking about geography. It's talking about domains. Quadrants of control. Areas of influence inside the cosmic design. The rider has authority to kill with sword, famine, plague, and beasts. But these aren't punishments. They're counterforces. Each one is the inverse of a mechanism the system uses to enforce order. These riders are not here to destroy creation, they're here to dismantle the foundation the demiurge has built under it. Now I want you to hear this part with full attention, because it is the most important detail. The four horsemen don't appear randomly. They don't burst into the world unannounced. They are released by the breaking of seals. And the seals are not barriers to destruction, they are locks placed on truth. The Lamb doesn't unleash chaos. The Lamb unleashes revelation. These riders are not punishers. They're disruptors. They destabilize the system by exposing the illusions that hold it together. The white rider dismantles the illusion of sovereignty. The red rider dismantles the illusion of peace. The black rider dismantles the illusion of fairness. The pale rider dismantles the illusion of mortality. For illusions. For supports of the false throne. For pillars holding up a structure that hides behind the concept of divine order. Every rider targets a different pillar until the entire architecture begins to collapse from the inside. Notice something else: none of the riders act alone. Their emergence forms a sequence. Not a chain of events, an escalation of revelation. Each rider doesn't cause the next to appear. Each rider reveals conditions that allow the next lower layer of illusion to be exposed. The first rider breaks the illusion of justified authority, exposing the system's need for coercion. The second rider reveals the coercion masked as peace. The third exposes the resource manipulation that supports that peace. And the fourth reveals death as the ultimate boundary the system uses to maintain its grip. Once all four illusions are shattered, the system can no longer contain its own architecture. That's why after the fourth rider appears, revelation shifts dramatically. The seals that follow don't introduce external forces. They reveal internal collapse. The cosmic order can't sustain itself once the horsemen have stripped away its foundation. Let's analyze another detail people skip entirely. None of the horsemen are described as evil. Not once. Not implied. Not hinted. The fear surrounding them comes from the system itself, because the system cannot survive what they expose. These riders don't break creation. They break the illusion that created the prison around creation. The horsemen are not divine wrath or demonic assault. They are the cosmic audit. They appear when the time comes to tear the masks off the architecture pretending to be sacred. And their arrival means one thing: the Lamb has begun the process of revealing what's been hidden behind the throne. You've heard the Lamb described so softly your whole life that the symbolism has lost its teeth. You've been fed this image of a gentle figure, meek, passive, waiting to be sacrificed. But Revelation does not present the Lamb as a victim. It presents the Lamb as the one force in the entire cosmic narrative capable of cracking the system open from the inside. The Lamb isn't a symbol of surrender. The Lamb is the detonator. Let's get direct with this: nothing in Revelation moves until the Lamb takes the scroll. Nothing breaks. Nothing shakes. Nothing opens. The entire machine remains perfectly locked until this figure steps forward. That alone tells you the Lamb isn't weak. The Lamb holds the only key that the demiurgic order can't counterfeit. The scroll is sealed because the system doesn't want what's inside to be seen. And the Lamb takes it anyway. Look at the reaction around the throne. Creatures, elders, beings of cosmic authority, none of them move toward the scroll. Not one. They're all paralyzed. They cannot touch it, not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the right. Only the Lamb moves. Only the Lamb approaches. And the moment he does, the entire throne room erupts, not in fear of him, but in recognition of what's about to happen. Think about what that means. The Lamb is the one figure who steps into the architecture without being bound by it. He doesn't negotiate with the order. He infiltrates it. He reaches into the core of the system and pulls the seals loose like someone removing bolts from a locked vault. This isn't passive obedience. This is surgical insurrection wrapped in the disguise of innocence. The scroll itself isn't a prophecy of the future. It's an encrypted map of the artificial design. The seals aren't warnings, they're security locks placed by the demiurge to keep the true structure hidden. So when the Lamb breaks the seals, he's not unleashing catastrophe. He's dismantling secrecy. He's tearing open the blueprint the ruler tried to bury under fear, ritual, and imitation authority. And here's the part you need to see clearly: Revelation doesn't treat each seal like an event. It treats them like revelations, layered exposures of the system's operating codes. The horsemen crack the foundation, but the Lamb is the one who authorizes their release. Every rider is a force triggered by the Lamb's act of breaking the veil. Without the Lamb, the system stays intact forever. Now watch the progression. After the fourth seal unleashes the horsemen, the narrative shifts dramatically because the remaining seals aren't forces, they're unveilings. They show what happens when the illusion collapses. The fifth seal reveals souls crying out beneath the altar. This isn't a theological scene. It's an internal disclosure. These souls aren't trapped because they're punished. They're trapped because the system never allowed them to ascend. They represent awareness oppressed by the demiurge's hierarchy. Their cry isn't begging for mercy. It's demanding recognition of the injustice built into the architecture itself. The Lamb doesn't silence them. He acknowledges them. That alone tells you that the Lamb isn't here to reinforce the system's rules. The Lamb is here to destroy them. He grants these suppressed souls white robes, not as rewards, but as identifiers. White robes mark them as conscious beings who were forced beneath the altar of the false throne. They are the evidence that the system has been feeding on suppressed truth since the beginning. Now examine the sixth seal. This is the moment the machine breaks. The sun darkens. The moon shifts. Stars collapse. Every construct in the sky begins to malfunction. None of this describes physical destruction. These symbols point to the collapse of the artificial sky, the overlay projected by the demiurge to mask the cosmic truth. When the Lamb breaks the sixth seal, the illusionary layer loses integrity. The tools of deception glitch. The architecture fractures. Every ruler, every power, every force hiding behind divinity reacts with terror, not because the world is ending, but because their cover is gone. They hide in caves, calling for the rocks to fall on them. Not to avoid destruction, but to avoid being seen. Revelation isn't showing leaders afraid of death. It's showing them afraid of exposure. And then, the seventh seal. The silence. Nothing in Revelation is accidental. Silence in the heavens isn't peace. Silence is shut down. Silence is the moment when the machine loses its ability to speak. The system goes offline. The voice of the false order is cut. The illusions stop transmitting. Everything goes dark, not because the Lamb destroys the cosmos, but because the Lamb disconnects it from the power source that fueled its manipulation. From this silence flows the next wave of revelations, 7 trumpets entrusted to 7 angels. People confuse these trumpets with judgment. But they are not judgment. They are diagnostic tones. Each trumpet exposes specific flaws inside the architecture. Each blast reveals another system failure triggered by the Lamb's actions. But stay focused on the Lamb. The trumpets don't function without the silence. The silence doesn't exist without the breaking of the 7th seal. The 7th seal doesn't break without the Lamb. Every movement of revelation is powered by this singular act of defiance. Now consider this, the Lamb's role isn't destructive. It's invasive. The Lamb infiltrates the cosmic throne room without permission. He approaches the sealed scroll without authorization. He breaks the seals without hesitation. He triggers collapse without fear. He operates as if the throne doesn't intimidate him at all. And it doesn't. Because the Lamb's authority does not originate from the demiurge's hierarchy. The Lamb carries an authority the system has no power over. The text describes the Lamb as slain yet standing. That's not a resurrection image. That's an indictment. The Lamb bears marks of violence inflicted by the system, yet the system cannot eliminate him. The hierarchy used death as its ultimate tool, and the Lamb walked through it without being bound by it. That alone destabilizes the entire architecture. Death, the final enforcement mechanism, has no jurisdiction over him. The Lamb's existence undermines the system from its core. This is why the Lamb is feared. Not because he destroys. Because he reveals the limits of the demiurge's power. Everything the system relies on, authority, obedience, scarcity, death, fails when the Lamb takes the scroll. The Lamb doesn't need armies. He doesn't need weapons. His power is absolute because it comes from outside the structure entirely. Now examine the golden bowls. These bowls don't contain wrath. They contain culmination, fully matured consequences of a system collapsing under its own deception. The angels don't pour out judgment. They pour out disclosure. Each bowl exposes corruption that was previously hidden behind divine branding. And the Lamb is the one who initiates this cascade. Not through violence. Through revelation. The throne room reacts to the Lamb with a song, not a hymn of worship, but a declaration of authority. Worthy to take the scroll. Worthy in this context means qualified. Able. Authorized. This is a legal declaration. A cosmic verdict. The throne room acknowledges something the demiurge never wanted revealed. The Lamb has the right to unseal what the ruler sealed. That right alone dismantles the false god's claim to absolute dominion. Then comes the most profound symbol, the Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Horns represent power. Eyes represent perception. The Lamb doesn't possess limited authority. He possesses complete authority. Not the authority borrowed from the system, but the authority to override it entirely. The horns show total power. The eyes show total awareness. That combination makes the Lamb the only being in Revelation capable of understanding both the design and the deception. This is why the system collapses. It cannot withstand a force that sees it fully and holds power beyond its reach. Now watch what happens when the Lamb stands at the center of the throne. The vision shifts. Not because the Lamb ascends, but because the throne adjusts. The Lamb doesn't move to the throne reorients around him. That detail alone tells you everything. The Lamb is not a subject. He's the axis. He's the reference point. He is the gravitational center of the new reality forming as the old one collapses. The next scenes of Revelation show chaos, upheaval, and cosmic unraveling, not because the Lamb destroys creation, but because creation begins to shed the artificial structure imposed on it. The Lamb's presence destabilizes the throne room because the throne isn't built to hold truth. It's built to contain it. The Lamb doesn't fight the cosmic ruler. He bypasses him. He doesn't argue. He dismantles. He doesn't challenge authority. He reveals authority as fraudulent. And that revelation is the one force the demiurge cannot survive. The Lamb isn't the savior of the world. The Lamb is the breach. The Lamb is the crack in the cosmic wall. The Lamb is the force that walks through the system's boundaries without permission. And the moment the Lamb takes the scroll, the world hidden beneath the illusion begins to surface, not through destruction, but through unveiling. You've seen the seals break. You've watched the structure collapse. You've witnessed the throne lose its disguise. But Revelation doesn't end with the system falling apart. It ends with something the demiurgic order never intended anyone to see. Something that appears only after the illusions are stripped away, after the machinery glitches, after the sky cracks open and the architecture of control disintegrates. What emerges isn't destruction. It's disclosure. And nothing reveals that disclosure more violently than the appearance of the so-called New Jerusalem. Forget every sanitized version you've ever heard. Forget the polished sermons, the golden gates, the feel-good imagery. Revelation's New Jerusalem is not a physical city. It's not a future paradise descending from the atmosphere like a cosmic cruise ship. The text never treats it like a location. It treats it like a frequency. A state of existence incompatible with the demiurge's artificial design. New Jerusalem doesn't emerge after the world ends. It emerges after the lie ends. Look closely at how it appears, descending, radiant, crystalline, structured not like a metropolis but like a geometric construct. Every dimension is symbolic. Every measurement is metaphysical. The city is a cube, 12,000 stadia on each side. Not a city. A shape. A perfect, impossible, cosmic-scale cube. And if you've been paying attention, you know exactly what that means. Cubes in esoteric tradition represent containment. Structure. Order. But this cube isn't a prison. It's a counterstructure. A higher template descending into a broken architecture, overriding everything the demiurge built. The system's fake holy city collapses under the seals. And in its place, a different design drops into view, one the throne could never copy. Now look at the walls. They're not defensive structures. They're boundaries of frequency. They mark separation between the artificial reality and the reality the system tried to suppress. 12 foundations. Each foundation a gemstone. Not literal stones. Not decorations. These are symbolic frequencies. Amethyst, jasper, sapphire, topaz, these stones represent energetic states the material world cannot replicate. They're the bandwidths of existence the demiurge cut you off from the moment he constructed the false cosmos. This city isn't built. It's revealed. And then there's the light. The most misunderstood part of the entire vision. The city doesn't need the sun. It doesn't need the moon. It doesn't need any external source of illumination. It shines from within. That alone tells you exactly what it is, a structure powered by internal truth, not external control. In the artificial world, light comes from the sky, the throne's projection. In New Jerusalem, light emerges from the core. No dependency. No hierarchy. No ruler. This is not the continuation of the old order. This is the replacement. Revelation describes the gates, 12 of them, each one made of a single pearl. People love the imagery but never understand the point. Pearls are formed through irritation, through disruption, through the intrusion of an unwanted force. The gates of New Jerusalem aren't symbols of beauty. They're symbols of resistance. Entry into the higher realm is born from the friction created by awakening. Every gate is a reminder that truth emerges through rupture, not compliance. There are gates on every side of the city. That means access is universal, multidirectional, open from all angles. The demi-edged world has one entrance, birth, and one exit, death, both controlled, monitored, regulated. New Jerusalem's structure has no controlled entry point. It doesn't filter by hierarchy. It doesn't enforce direction. It stands open on all sides because the higher reality doesn't need to restrict movement. Only the false reality does. Now focus on the river. This detail isn't poetic. It's critical. The river flows from the center of the city, from the throne of the Lamb, not from the sky, not from the ground, but from the heart of the geometry. Water in apocalyptic language symbolizes consciousness. Flow symbolizes continuity. The river is the unbroken line of awareness that the demiurge severed when he constructed his counterfeit cosmos. In the higher design, consciousness isn't fragmented. It's uninterrupted. It flows without interference. And its source isn't a ruler, it's the Lamb, the breaker of seals. The Lamb doesn't preside over New Jerusalem. The Lamb powers it. Now look at the tree of life. The text doesn't place it in a garden. It places it in the middle of the city, straddling the river, bearing 12 fruits. 12 doesn't mean months. 12 means completeness. Cycles. Archetypal wholeness. The tree's fruit isn't nourishment. It's reconnectation. It restores the bandwidth of existence the demiurge blocked. And its leaves heal, not the world, but the nations, meaning the divided consciousness fragmented by the false cosmos. The tree of life isn't a relic. It's a reclamation. What Revelation shows here is not the end of creation. It's the end of the counterfeit version of creation. The demiurge's architecture collapses because it was never designed to be permanent. It was designed to be closed. New Jerusalem descends because it was never designed to be hidden. It was designed to be revealed. The text is explicit, nothing impure enters. That's not moral condemnation. That's metaphysical incompatibility. Deception simply cannot survive in that environment because the structure itself is built on complete transparency. Now pay attention to the most radical part of the entire vision: there is no temple in the city. That is not an accident. That is a declaration. In the artificial world, temples represent control points, access points, centralized locations where the demiurge exerts authority through ritual and hierarchy. But in New Jerusalem, the temple is unnecessary because the entire structure is unified. There is no separation between sacred and secular, between divine and mortal, between ruler and subject. The temple disappears because the concept of sacred hierarchy collapses. The absence of a temple is an act of cosmic rebellion. The vision describes something even more shocking: the nations walk by the city's light. The kings bring their glory into it. But nothing says they rule. Nothing says they govern. Nothing says they control. They enter as participants, not as authorities. Because authority in the higher structure doesn't belong to any throne, only to truth. And then you get the line almost nobody pays attention to: the gates never close. In a world shaped by the demiurge, every gate closes. Every system locks. Every passage narrows. The entire architecture is built around containment. But New Jerusalem doesn't close any gate at any hour because it operates on a frequency where darkness doesn't exist. Not metaphorical darkness. Literal, structural absence of darkness. There is nothing to hide from. Nothing to fear. Nothing to suppress. The concept of shutting out danger becomes meaningless. This is the apex of Revelation, the disclosure of a higher structure that the old order feared so much that it buried it under decades of misinterpretation. Forget that city of gold imagery. Gold is symbolic. It represents incorruptibility. It represents resistance to decay. New Jerusalem is built from a form of existence the demiurge cannot corrupt. That's why it descends only after the collapse. It cannot coexist with the false throne. The two structures operate on incompatible principles. The old world was built on enforcement. The new world is built on exposure. The old system was powered by secrecy. The new system is powered by clarity. The old reality relied on obedience. The new reality relies on transparency. Revelation isn't showing a paradise. It's showing a takeover, a replacement, a recalibration, a restoration, not through violence, through unveiling. And everything about this final vision makes one truth impossible to ignore: the Demiurge's realm was never the endgame. It was a detour, a distortion, a temporary architecture awaiting correction. And the moment New Jerusalem appears, the counterfeit reality loses jurisdiction. Not because it is destroyed, but because it is outclassed. The throne that once ruled vanishes from the narrative. It doesn't fight. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't speak. It disappears because it cannot survive in the presence of a structure built on absolute truth. Control collapses when exposure becomes permanent. Revelation closes not with destruction, but with dominance. Not the dominance of a tyrant. The dominance of a truth the system could never counterfeit. And the final image, the city illuminated from within, the river flowing, the tree bearing fruit, delivers a message without needing commentary. This is what the system tried to hide. This is what the seals concealed. This is what the Lamb revealed. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I truly appreciate your time, your curiosity, and your presence here.